Let's take time to review all the different ways we've talked about how to factor. The first thing we looked at for factoring was factoring out a greatest common factor. To do that, that's where we used the skinny box. And we said what was the biggest thing that went into both of the terms. For this, it would be 4x. Then we said what times 4x is 12x squared? 3x. What times 4x is negative 20x? Negative 5. So this factors to 4x times 3x minus 5. One that gave us some trouble was this one on the right, because I have all these x's. So I know x goes into all of it, and then I take out the lowest exponent, which would be 2. And we say what times x squared is x cubed? X minus what times x squared is x to the 5th? X cubed. And what times x squared is x squared? 1. So x squared times x minus x cubed plus 1. After we looked at GCF, we looked at factoring 4 terms. But the first thing we always do is look for a GCF. So what number goes into everything at the top? 2. So I'm going to divide everything by 2, which would give me 2x cubed minus 5x squared minus 6x plus 15. And now I'm going to bring down my 2, and we factor 4 terms by putting each term in the box. So 2x cubed, negative 5x squared, negative 6x, and 15. So the GCF of my first row is x squared. What times x squared is 2x cubed? 2x. What times x squared is negative 5x squared? Negative 5. What times 2x is negative 6x? Negative 3. And we check our last box. Negative 3 times negative 5 is 15. So x squared minus 3 times 2x minus 5. When we get to 3 terms, we're going to force it to be 4 terms by using x box. So our first step for that was A, B, C for negative 8, negative 5. First term, first box. So that's 4x squared. Last term, last box, negative 5. And we multiply those, which gives me negative 20. So what two numbers multiply to negative 20? And then B goes at the bottom. And add to negative 8. And that's going to be negative 10, positive 2. So negative 10x and 2x. Remember, it doesn't matter where I put those. GCF of my first row, that would be 2x. What times 2x is 4x squared? 2x. What times 2x is negative 10x? Negative 5. What times 2x is 2x? 1. So this factors to 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 5. Going to do the same process for the next one. A is 1, B is negative 5, C is negative 36. So first term, first box, which is x squared. Last term, last box, which is negative 36. Multiply. What two things multiply to negative 36 and add to negative 5? That would be negative 9 and 4. So negative 9x and 4x, factored out, x, negative 9, positive 4. So x plus 4, x minus 9. Then we got to ones that were 2 terms, perfect square, subtraction in the middle. This is where we did my original wrap. So if we've got 2 terms, perfect square, subtraction in the middle, let's go from there. Put your parentheses, 1 with the plus, then subtraction, yes you must. Square root of the first, wiki, square root of the last. Keep them in order and you're done fast. And we're just doing that for each of these. Remember, the keep them in order means square root of 144 is 12, and even though that looks weird going first, it's still correct. If we look at the last one, we just need to be careful about my exponents. So square root of 9y to the fourth would be 3y squared. 3y squared, and then 11x cubed. 11x cubed. After we did difference of two perfect squares, we looked at factoring perfect square trinomials. So perfect square trinomials need to begin and end with positive perfect squares, and then since it's supposed to be a square, what we do is we see, okay, I'm going to do x squared, 9, and if I do the square root of both of those, I get x and x, 3 and 3, and then this is plus, so plus, plus, and does my diagonal work? This would give me 3x plus 3x, which would give me 6x. Is that what my middle term is? No, so we would say not a perfect square trinomial. Let's try the next one. First term, first box. Last term, last box. Let's try doing the square root. So this would be 5x. 5x. Square root of 36y squared is 6y. 6y. And then my middle sign is negative. And let's check. So this would give me negative 30xy. Negative 30xy. And that does combine, whoa, that does combine to give me negative 60xy, which is my middle term. So this would factor to 5x minus 6y squared. Let's try the last one. First term, first box. Last term, last box. Square root, square root, square root, square root. My middle sign is negative. Let's check my middle term. Negative 5x does give me negative 10x. So this factors to x minus 5 squared. After learning all those methods, we combined them to learn to factor completely. So that means we look for a GCF, which we always should be doing. So for this first one, my GCF is 2. What times 2 is 6x squared? 3x squared. What times 2 is negative 28x? Negative 14x. What times 2 is negative 10? Negative 5. And we're going to bring down our 2 for when I get my final answer. And since I have 3 terms left on the top, we're going to do X box. A is 3, B is negative 14, and C is negative 5. So first term, first box, last term, last box, but we're using the very top numbers now. We're not paying attention to my original problem anymore. So 3x squared, negative 5. Multiply those, I get negative 15. So what two numbers multiply to negative 15 and add to negative 14? That would be negative 15 times 1. Now let's take out our GCF. So we get 3x. What times 3x is 3x squared? X. What times 3x is negative 15x? Negative 5. What times x is negative 1x? Negative 1. And we can check and see that we're right with the bottom right. So 3x minus 1 times x minus 5. But we have to remember that 2 in front, which is why I just go ahead and bring it down at the beginning. So let's look at this next one. What's different with this one? This one has 2 terms. So we check with our GCF, which would be 3. And on the top, I'm left with 4x squared minus 9. So right now I have 3 times 4x squared minus 9. But what do you notice about my numbers 4 and 9? We have perfect squares. So if you got 2 terms, perfect squares, subtraction in the middle, let's go from there. Put your parentheses 1 with a plus, and a subtraction, yes you must. Those of you who don't have me as a teacher are probably thinking I'm crazy. Well, I am. My students are used to it. And there we go. Then we did mixed factoring, which is where you had to identify the factoring method, and before you would normally do it, but this I just want us to identify what method we would use and do the very first step, okay? So this first one, do I have a GCF? No. How many terms do I have? 2. Are they perfect squares? Yes. So this is where we would do the wrap. So my first step would be parentheses plus minus. Okay, look at the next one. Do I have a GCF? No. How many terms do I have? 3. So that means we would be doing X box. So 2, -7, 5, and then you would be doing your box and the X. Looking to the right, I have 4 terms. So to factor 4 terms, that's where we do the box and just put every term in the box. First term, first box, last term, last box, and then these other two don't matter. Then we have this next one with 2 terms. It has a GCF because 5 goes into both. So I'd stick it in the skinny box and take out my GCF. And this last one is 3 terms, which means I could do X box. But look at my numbers, they're really, really large. And also look, I have positive perfect squares beginning and ending. So that means I'm going to check to see if it's a perfect square trinomial. First term, first box. Last term, last box. And I would be doing the square roots to get to the edge. We also talked about graphs of parabolas. So this one opens down. My x-intercepts are at -2 and 4. I'll put those in squiggly brackets. You don't want to put parentheses, that means point. Y-intercept is at 8. Vertex is at 1, 9. So axis of symmetry is x equals the x value of the vertex. Max min value, this is a maximum, and that's the y value of the vertex. Range has to do with y. It opens down, so it's less than or equal to, and that's also the y value of the vertex. Intercept form, y equals, we go back to our intercepts. We have to change the sign. So this would be x plus 2, x minus 4, and it opens down, so this is negative. Vertex form, y equals, it's also going to be negative, and we're using the vertex. So x minus 1 squared plus 9. It's like the y equals m, x minus h thing, except for we have to put the squared because it's a parabola.